Now to study Matthew chapter 16, verse 24 through 28 with you, focusing on the style of the cross style of Jesus Christ. And of course it's highlighted here in a great and marvelous way. And it's in the words of Jesus himself as he begins to explain to his disciples exactly what's going on and exactly what they are to be a part of. And he's explained it in terms of if they're going to be a part of him, here's exactly what's going to have to take place in their lives. Here's the kinds of things that are going to be the result of it. And here are the kinds of things they're going to be involved in. If they don't want to look into their lives and be involved in these kinds of things, then they certainly don't want to join themselves to him, because this is the kind of Messiah he is. Now we've seen this in the unfolding of the mysteries that have been given to us in chapter 16. The mystery of his person, the mystery of his project, the mystery of his program, now the mystery of his projection or his perspective. So what he's talking about is, here's the mystery of the way I see things. This is the mystery of what I'm all about. This is the mystery of how things are going to play out. This is the mystery of the things that are going to take place because you are a part of me, because this is the very inner nature of my being that flows. And if you're going to be a part of that nature, here are the results. Here's how it's going to come about. So this approach to this scripture becomes very important. We spent a whole class period talking about it last time, but I need to go over it again just to be sure you get it in kind of a review. See, if you approach this passage just by taking this passage out, looking at it on your own, seeing it for what it is in verse 24, you see it without context, then you would look at this and say, well, these are three things you have to do if you desire to come after him. That's what it says in verse 24. If anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. So if you want to come after him, here's three things you have to do. Deny yourself, take up your cross, follow him. Those three things are conditions. They are prerequisites. They are requirements if you're going to follow him. But see, if you get into the mind process of Jesus, if you begin to think what he's thinking, and especially in terms of the thought process of the cross, if you see what's going on in who he is, the Messiah, the Christ, the Son of the living God, now the content of that Messiahship as he explains the mystery of his program, if you begin to see that, if you begin to see that the program is all about lose your life, die to yourself, give yourself up, never ever live for yourself, if you see that that's the essence of what this Jesus is all about, and that's the way he thinks, that's what he projects, the whole flow of his life is in that direction. He moves in that direction. He feels in that direction. He sees things through those kinds of lens. If you get into that mindset and you begin to see this passage in light of that, Jesus is speaking from that perspective, from that mindset. So you must interpret these words from that viewpoint. That changes everything. See, this is not a requirement that you're to meet up to, then you can get involved with him. This is, get involved with him and guess what's going to happen in your life. These three things are going to begin to spill out of you. You're going to begin to deny yourself, lose your life, take up your cross, and you're going to follow him. See, these are the kinds of things that are naturally going to begin to spill through your life. These are the kinds of things that are naturally going to begin to flow from your lips and come from your eyes and live through your hands. These are the things you're naturally, spontaneously, can't help yourself, going to begin to get involved in. So these are not the results of, these are not the requirements of, these are the results of. These are not the prerequisites to get in contact with Jesus. This is the attitude that flows out of being in touch with Jesus. So we don't know anything about denying ourselves in terms of sacrifice. We know the delight of denial. We don't know anything about, oh brother, I have to take up a cross. We know everything about, whoa, I get to join him and be like him in terms of the cross. I get to be a part of the bleeding, suffering, and dying. I get to experience the movement of Christ through me, bleeding for my world. Thank you, Jesus. See, this is not anything about, oh brother, I gotta follow him, wonder where he's going now. This is, whoa, what a privilege to be linked to be a believer and a follower and a learner after, to allow his life to begin to flow through me until through me he begins to be experienced by my world, and I am a reproduction of the life of Jesus in my day. The bleeding of Christ is taking place fresh and new in and through my life. Thank you, Jesus, for the privilege, and this becomes the results of of intimacy with Him, oneness with Him. I'm crucified with Him. I've joined Him where He is. Death to myself that He might live through me. This is the whole expression of it. So Jesus has turned to disciples who, you remember, have been rebuking Him, who have been telling Him, no, no, you're not going to be a bleeding, suffering, dying Messiah. We don't want any part of that kind of Messiah. He's now turned to them and said, hey guys, if you're going to be a part of me, hey guys, if you're going to join me, hey guys, if you're going to be linked to me, you're going to have to change your thought process. Because I'm a bleeding, suffering, dying Messiah. And anyone who is linked to me, these are the things you're going to get involved in. These are the things that are going to spill out of your life. Here are the natural results of what's going to take place if you're going to be in me, if you're going to be linked with me, if you're going to be my disciple. Get ready, you're going to bleed, suffer, and die. And if you don't want those things to be a natural part of your life, then you better back out now, because hey, that's what getting involved with me is all about. Those are the things that begin to be produced when you lose your life to me. So do you want in? And I say, yes, I do. Oh, I want to be in. I want to know Him in His death and in His resurrection. I want to know Him in the flow of the loss of His life. I want to know Him in the bleed, suffering, and dying, that I might know Him in His living, and in knowing in His living might impact my world, and that my world might see Him anew and afresh. This is the impact of these verses. So we want to look again at these powerful verses, which is the discourse. I want to remind you that this is not all there was to the discourse. The indication is that this discourse went on for 6 solid days. So there was much more talk and much more information and much more valuable insight given that we don't have. Matthew simply summarizes it up in 5 simple verses. Oh, to know the rest of it. And no doubt that's what we're going to get in the rest of the chapters as we begin to have the unfolding of this truth made visible before our very eyes in the life of Jesus Christ. So we're looking at Matthew chapter 16, verse 24. And we want to read it again. Oh, get these words in your mind. Powerful words. The words of Jesus. Here's what they say. Then Jesus said to His disciples, if anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever desires to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what profit is it to a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? For the Son of Man will come in the glory of His Father with His angels, and then He will reward each according to his works. Assuredly, I say to you, there are some standing here who shall not taste death till they see the Son of Man coming in His kingdom. Powerful, powerful words. I'm wanting to give you an outline. I'm wanting to take these particular words, these 5 verses, and divide them up into 3 sections. And we want to analyze them and ask the Lord to reveal His truth to us as we saturate in these passages. The first one is, of course, found in verse 24. And that is the idea of the statement of the attitude. Again, let me remind you that what Jesus is talking about is that, hey, you get involved with me. Hey, you give your life to me. Hey, you become a disciple of mine. And here's the kinds of things that are going to flow from you. Here's the attitude. Here's the style that's going to begin to flow out of your life. Naturally, spontaneously, this is the way it's going to happen. So this is an attitude we're talking about. The style of the cross. The way of looking at things. It's the never ever living for yourself kind of deal. It's the lose your life, die to yourself, give yourself away, never ever live for yourself kind of attitude. So that's the attitude that He's calling them to. And He begins in verse 24 with this great statement of the attitude. Then He moves into verse 25 and gives them the sense of the attitude. What's it all about? How does it really break down? What is its impact? And then in verse 26, 27, and 28, he goes on to not only give them the sense of the attitude, but the security of the attitude, what it rests upon, what its final foundation is, how it finally plays out. So the statement of the attitude, verse 24, the sense of the attitude, verse 25, and the security of the attitude, verse 26, 27, and 28. Let's look again today at verse 24, the statement of the attitude. Here's what he says. Again, read it. If anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. Do you know what a shock, absolute shock, that must have been to his disciples? Probably as shocking as it is and has been to us. Do you know what an absolute shock this was to his disciples? How the coloring must have drained from their face, how they must have stared at him with open mouth, how they must have looked and said, "You can't mean that. That can't be what you're saying. You better interpret this for us. You better explain what you mean, because that doesn't make any sense. It can't be the way you're saying it. No, Jesus, you don't mean what you're saying. You must explain it again to us, because that isn't the way it is." Because they were so wrapped up in the idea of condition. In other words, these things are the condition of. And when Jesus emphasized, no, they're not the condition of. No, this is not the condition of being my disciple. This is not what I'm asking you to do in order to be my disciple. This is what I'm telling you. If you become my disciple, these are the things you're going to get involved in. Here's the attitude you're going to have. How they must have looked at themselves and said, "We don't have that attitude. This is not the way we operate." So does that mean we're really not attached to you? Does that mean we really don't have your nature? Does that mean we're really not one with you? Does that mean we're really not on the same page as you're on? Because if we were on the same page you're on, would these things naturally be taking place in our lives? But they aren't. So we must not be linked with you like we want to be. Hey, that's an analysis for your life, isn't it? Hey, go into your life and ask yourself, is verse 24, deny yourself, take up your cross, follow me. Is this the spontaneous attitude? Is this the natural? Is this the way you get up? Is this the way you go to bed? Is this steeped in your life? Is this something you strain to do? Is this something well, I know I should. Well, I'm trying. Well, I'm working on it. Or is this the flow of your life? See, analyze yourself under that scrutiny. Hey, what's going down here? Because if you're linked with Him like you ought to be, if you're filled with Him, if you know His nature, if He has indwelt you in the fullness of Himself, should these things not be happening in and out of you? And should they not somewhat be spontaneous within your life? And again, I can see the disciples saying, wait a minute, Jesus, wait a minute, we're working on these things. Hey, I'm better than I was. I'll tell you that. I'm much better than I was. I'm improving. Hey, it's coming together. Listen, I'm in the progression of this. I mean, it's developing in my life. I'm more and more seeing it. No, Jesus says, hey, link with me. Get my nature. These things should be surprising you as they flow through your life. Not conjured up, not disciplined into, not make yourself do it, not realize this is important and so I should and so I will and grind yourself through it. This is the spontaneous. This is the whoops, I didn't mean to, but look what happened. I did it anyway. This is not I didn't make myself. I couldn't help myself. This just flowed in my life. This is the way it is. This is just happening within and through me. So I must come to a spiritual analysis. Oh Jesus, have I died in you? Have I come to the place of such oneness with you? Have I been crucified with you until I do not live, but you live through me? Have I literally involved myself? Have I literally opened to you until you could so permeate my mind and my inner heart and the nature of my being that you flow spontaneously through me in these ways? Deny yourself, take up your cross, follow me. Is that the natural heartbeat of my system? See, I'm really having a problem with much of evangelical Christianity that wants to talk about straining and struggling and trying and working at it, and well, I'm improving, and slap my hand and bite my lip and try harder, and well, it's coming, and well, I'm better than I was, and I'm better than most other folks. See, I'm really having a trouble with that. I'm really having trouble with the evangelical Christianity that wants to strain and struggle and strive and work at and try harder kinds of stuff. See, what I'm seeing in the New Testament is this whole idea of resting, leaning, relaxing. Whoa, my life is the stage upon which He's acting. Man, I can hardly believe what's going on in and through me. I'm loving when I shouldn't be loving. I'm caring when I shouldn't be caring. I'm acting the way I shouldn't act. I'm moving like I don't move. And what's inspiring all of this? Where is the resource for this? It's not me, it's Him. He's come, He's filled me, He's moving, He's doing. Hey, I'm experiencing, I'm loving it, I'm flowing with it. It's Him, and He is literally living His life through me. That's the essence of Christianity, the fullness of the Spirit. And what kind of style is going to naturally flow out of me if He is going to live His life through me like that? It's the style of the cross. So you see, this is an attitude we begin to have as He begins to flow His life through us. So we must be looking to see what's happening through us. Is this attitude expressing itself in and through us? Is this the way we are living? Are we seeing the dynamic of this take place in our lives? See, that's the wonder of this Christianity that Jesus is talking about. There are 3 statements in this verse. You can see them. Let him deny himself, take up his cross, follow me. 3 statements. Now, the interesting thing is that every single one of those statements is in the imperative. It's in the imperative mood. In other words, they are commands. It's the idea that, hey, I'm commanding you. It's the imperative. It gives you something of the inflection of the voice of Jesus as He's turning to them and saying, hey, I'm telling you, this is the way it is. This is a command. Now again, remember, it's not a command of, you must do these things. It's a command that, hey, if you get in me, you will do these things. So the imperative is in the form of, hey, this is what's going to happen out of you. This is not up for grabs. We're not voting on this. I'm not presenting this to you as some kind of an option. Yeah, you can take it or leave it. Hey, it's good or bad. Hey, suit yourself. Fit in where you want to. Come to the level you want to come to. See, I have a hard time with the statement, you can have as much of God as you want. I don't think that's true at all. I think you either have Him or you don't have Him. I think you're either filled with Him or you're not filled with Him. I don't think you can get half of Him. I don't think you can get part of Him. I'm absolutely convinced you can't get sections of Him. You can't have some of Him in some sections of your life and not in others. It takes all out, down to it. My dad taught me well. He said it doesn't take much of a man to be a Christian, just takes all there is of him, son. Hey, it's just flat on the floor, 3rd gear, man. It's all out. That's the only kind of Christian there is. He's Lord of all, or He isn't Lord at all. See, that's the basic fundamental of all Christianity. So He's not talking about levels, work your way up to. He's talking about, hey, guys, this is an imperative. This is an absolute. This is the way it is. I'm telling you, for the record, this is the way it's going down. You join yourself to me, and these are the things you're going to do. This is an absolute, essential must. As it's a must for me, well, we learned that, didn't we, in verse 21? The necessary quality. It was a must for Jesus. The cross was an absolute must. It was a must in the sovereign decree of God. It was a must because God absolutely decreed it was going to be this way. Hey, the redemption of a world was going to take place through bleeding, suffering, and dying. And that was an absolute must. Had to be. Now He's turned to His disciples and says, hey guys, if it's a must for me, guess what it is for you? This is an absolute must. This is an imperative. This is a command from God Himself. This is a decree from the Father. If you're going to be involved with me, here's the things that are going to spill out of you. And do not claim to be involved with me. Do not claim to be one with me. Do not claim to be filled with me if these things are not being experienced in your life. These are the results, the spontaneous action of the very nature of my being as they spill through you. So this is the absolute must, the imperative of the statement. Now there's three of them, three imperatives. First of all is the imperative of purposeful denial. Read it again, verse 24. If anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself. It's the imperative of purposeful denial. You know that denial strikes at the very heart of life itself. That's why we shun it. That's why we run from it. That this is not about, oh, listen, I'll eat less ice cream. This is not about, oh, it's a Lent time, Easter time, and I want to sacrifice something for Jesus, so I'll give up my ice cream. See, it's not that kind of deal at all. This is not some light denial. This is not some giving up something that really didn't matter anyhow. This is not that. This strikes a blow at the very heart of the self-centeredness of the disciples themselves, which is the whole issue. And you're going to see that as we move into chapter 17 and especially into chapter 18, as they came arguing about which one of us gets to be number one in the kingdom, and they were so full of themselves that their self-centeredness simply expressed itself in power struggles and having to have their own way and desiring name recognition and wanting titles and all that kind of stuff. They were filled with this self-centered carnality. Now, deny yourself strikes a blow right at the heart of that. In fact, what he's talking about is giving up all reliance on whatever we are in our own nature. All that I am in my own self-centeredness, all that's confined within my own talent, all that's found within my own wisdom, all that's found within my own academic pursuit, all that's found in my educational rank, all that's found in all the prestige of my own being, all that's found in the power of my own name, all that's found in the ability and talent of my own being, all that's found in me, I renounce it. I, in the name of Jesus, renounce it. I give up reliance on it, and I'm going to rely on only one thing and one thing alone, and that is Him. Now, you know that the Bible is its own best commentary. So if you find a verse and wonder what is the commentary, what does that mean, probably better keep on reading, because if you keep on reading, you will find a section, a verse, a paragraph that will explain what you've just read. That certainly is true with this. In fact, let me have you turn to the book of Galatians. Now, Paul is writing to the people of Galatia, and as he's writing to them, of course, he has one big theme, and that is that they have been fooled by the Judaizers, and they have been going back to the old law. And the Judaizers have been telling them that Paul meant well, he did okay, but really what happened was Paul was a little radical and didn't tell them all the truth. He told them they are saved by grace, and that is true. You are saved by grace, but there's some things that need to be added to that, such as circumcision, such as Jewish laws, such as Sabbath day, keeping it holy. So they wanted to add these things to it. So it was grace of Jesus plus these other things. And Paul is literally screaming at that. He's literally saying, no, don't fall into that. It's Jesus plus nothing. You are saved by Jesus plus nothing. Absolutely nothing. It is the grace of God alone that saves you and brings you into intimacy. See, it's not these three things: deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow me. It isn't those three things that save you. You're saved by the grace of God, then that enables you to do these three things. And these three things are a result. Now, when you go to Galatians chapter 2, verse 20, you have a great commentary on this 24th verse in Matthew chapter 16. So turn to Galatians chapter 2, verse 20. You've memorized this, man. This is such a powerful, powerful scripture. Galatians chapter 2, verse 20. I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave Himself for me. Wow. Let's read it again. Verse 20. I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. Seems to me that's Christ all in all. Hey, that's Christ living, that's Christ dying, that's Christ living, that's Christ's resurrection, that's Christ displaying himself, that's Christ's resource, that's Christ's power. Everything seems to revolve around Christ. Listen to it again. I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. So you see, I'm crucified with Christ. Christ lives in me. I live by faith in the Son of God. See, everything revolves around him. He is the one who's producing the life. He is the one who's flowing out of me. Hey, this is the business of denial. This is the death to self. This is the coming to crucifixion. Until his death is my death, his life becomes my life. Paul talked about bearing in my body the dying of the Lord Jesus Christ. Oh, I bear in my body the dying. I've got to bear in my body the dying of the Lord Jesus Christ. I have his death implanted in me. My life comes out of that death. It's not an experience in an altar of prayer. It's the literal dying of Jesus now becoming my death. I'm identifying with Christ so tightly that his death has become my death and his life has become my life. And there's nothing left in my life but him. I have died. I have died to myself. I have given up all reliance on myself. Do you see this verse 24, Matthew chapter 26? It literally strikes a death blow to the self. It literally goes to the very heart of life itself. It literally takes a knife and jabs at the very quick of the being. It has to do with this business of self-centeredness. Again, it's not something that can be produced by self-centeredness. It's not that out of my self-centeredness and because I want to be recognized, I'll make this sacrifice, I'll give that money, I'll stand in the service and pledge $1,000. It's not that kind of a deal. See, all of that is self-produced. It's not a religion that's produced out of self, which gives self more pride and gives self more credit. It's a death to self. This strikes a blow at everything, all reliance on yourself. Everything that's within you that you count on that's not him, this is a death blow to it. This is a denial of all you are without him. This is a denial of everything you can produce within yourself. This is a renouncing and a denial of it until you give it up. It's a shift of resource. In other words, you cease to produce yourself and begin to be produced by him. See, this is a realization that's what's been going on in my life is I have been producing myself. And you know what the Bible says about, for instance, goodness, righteousness that you produce. It's filthy rags. See, everything, the best you can produce is nothing in his eyesight. See, nothing you can produce has any value in the kingdom at all. Only what he can produce in and through you has any value. So he's calling us back to a denial of ourselves, which again strikes a death blow at the very heart of all of self-centeredness. This is a call to the total, absolute death of self-centeredness. Now you know self is not bad. Self is good. God made self and it was right. It's self-centeredness that has perverted self. It's self out of proportion. It's self that wants to play the God role. It's self that wants to be king. It's self that's promoting itself. One man said, everywhere I go to and spoil everything. Man, I'm the problem. If I could just go someplace without myself. But everywhere I go, I show up there. I just can't get away from myself because this self is so strong in my life and has such a grip on me. That means you cannot tame it. That means you cannot discipline it. That means you can't correct it. That means we've only got one chance to this, and self has got to die, which was what Jesus is all about. On the cross, he sucked into himself all the raw sewage nature of your own being, the filth, the rot, the stench of your self-centered nature. He sucked it into himself that his death might be your death, and it's the only solution to the self-centered problem. You must die. die. You can't cater to it. You can't give it a little life. You can't camouflage it. You can't dress it up in another way. It's got to come to death. It's the only solution. It's the only way out of this. So he's calling us to death. And this denial that he's talking about in verse 24 strikes a death blow right at the heart of all self-centeredness. Pogo in the cartoons came bounding out. He was all dressed up, ready for battle. He had on the old-time helmet, and he had on the breastplate, and he had on the arm guards, and he had on the knees, the leg guards, and he had a sword, and he had his shield, and he was ready for battle. And then when he came bounding out, he said, "I've found the enemy, and it's us." See, I'm the one who's been shooting myself in the foot, man. I'm the one that's been destroying my relationships. I'm the one that's been causing the cancer of my own existence. I'm the one who's been messing up my life. I'm the one who's painted myself into a corner and laughed while I did it. I'm the guy who's pulled the rug out from under me. Hey man, this is my deal. I'm the one who's done all of this. See, I'm the cause. And I will never get myself out of this. I got myself into this, but I'm not going to get myself out of this because I've gone too deep. See, I've only got one chance. He's got to come and do something in me. I've got to die that he might live. So this is a call. This is a call, an absolute call of Christ to denial, the depth, the inside, the death, the bringing of all that you rely on at his feet, saying, "I renounce all that I rely on. I will give up everything except relying on you and you alone." Now you understand how easy it is for things to slip in. You understand how easy it is to begin to rely on my talent and begin to slip back and rely on my wisdom and begin to see it takes a constant focus. I've got to focus on him and him alone until he alone is the source and the strength of my life. See, that's what Jesus is taught on. Come on, get in me. Focus on me. See, don't try to deny yourself. Focus on me, and guess what will happen? You'll deny yourself. See, this whole denial thing is a result of coming into him. Come into him. You can't crucify yourself, man. You can't pull that off. This is not a condition that you have to meet up to. See, this is not just slap my hand and try harder. Well, I know I shouldn't have pride. Well, yeah. Probably got more proud. I've got more pride than I should. I shouldn't be so proud. Yeah, well, I'm disciplining myself. I'm learning to cope with it. I'm bringing it under control. I don't express it as much. Yeah, I let others take the lead now, and I kind of sit back. Yeah. I'm doing. No. This is not what he's talking about. Because this is not a condition to get into the kingdom. This is not something you have to achieve in order to be one with him. This is all become one with him. And in that oneness with him, death will take place, and you will deny yourself. And the lifestyle of denying, never thinking about yourself, always living for others, that will begin to spill out of you. And where does that come from? Not meet up to a condition and get in, but get in and it spills out of that. See, this attitude is the imperative of purposeful denial. He's calling you to the denial of yourself. And that can only come out of intimacy, oneness, through the power of the Spirit. An intimacy that comes about by death, being crucified with him. So this is the attitude that results from that kind of intimacy. And again, it's such a strong intimacy that we call it death. The loss of our lives. Hey, would you lose your life? Would you give yourself up? Hey, would you throw yourself away, man? Hey, would you quit your trying and your struggling and your doing? Would you give all that up, brother? Hey, would you give up your pride and would you just give up yourself, man? Would you just lay at his feet? Hey, would you just throw your life away? Would you just empty yourself? Would you just take hands down? Hey, I'm holding on to nothing, man. I'm coming to you, Jesus. Hey, if it's ever done in my life, you're going to have to do it. I have one single reliance, and it's on you, and I deny everything else. This is the imperative of purposeful denial. And again, this is not a condition that you meet up to. You don't do this and then get in. You get in and He enables you to do this because you are so bad you can't pull this off. Jesus has to do the crucifying. So, give yourself to Him. Get all wrapped up in Him. Focus on Him. And in that focus on Him, in that oneness with Him, purposeful denial will take place. There is a second imperative in the verse. Look at it. Then Jesus said to His disciples, if anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself. The imperative of purposeful denial. And take up his cross. This is the imperative of peculiar uplift. The imperative of peculiar uplift. It is definitely peculiar. Because you see, it's nothing that self would buy into. It's nothing, take up his cross. Self isn't going to say, yeah, let's do that. See, no. Self is protective. Self is, guard. Self is into comfort and prestige and power and embarrassment. That self is never into embarrassment. But a cross is embarrassing, see. Take up his cross and follow me. Verse 21, of course, Jesus has already talked to us about His cross. From that time, Jesus began to show to His disciples He must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders. And as He talks about His cross, you know what Peter did. He fell apart, man. When Jesus talked about going to His cross, His own cross, Peter fell apart, began to rebuke Him, said, no, far be it from you. This will never happen. God wouldn't let that happen to a Messiah, and just literally rebuked him and tried to put Jesus in his place. That's when Jesus talked about His cross. Can you imagine how Peter reacted when Jesus began to talk about, Peter, you have your own cross. You have your own cross. And I want you to come and take up your cross and follow me. I want you to come to your own death. I've talked to you about my death. I want you to come to your own death. Peter must have been shocked. His mouth must have gaped open. No wonder he got himself together and just started talking like mad and arguing, because he could hardly conceive that this is what was going to happen, that this is what Jesus had called him to. Hey, disciple, I'm calling you to the loss of your life. What is this, take up his cross? Well, in Jesus' day, everybody understood this phrase. What they were literally talking about was not the entire cross, but they were talking about the cross bar. The bar that was nailed to the up and down part. So they took this cross bar, this horizontal bar of the cross, and they would strap it to a man's shoulders. And he would carry that up and down the streets, up and down the streets, up and down the streets, throughout the main streets of the city of Jerusalem, so that everybody could see. It was a parade, man. He was in a box of soldiers. There were 2 soldiers behind him, 2 soldiers in front of him, leading the way as he would carry this. It was total embarrassment. The crowds would stand along the side. They would jeer, they would laugh, they'd have stuff. Rotten vegetables, throw it at him. Rotten eggs, throw at him. Hey, it was a ridicule, make fun of him. Hey, it was a part of the whole cross scene. There were some other reasons they did it, but this was a bearing of the cross. Up and down the streets, man. Embarrassment, peer pressure, ridicule, embarrassment. All of that was taken. It wasn't just take you out and nail you, man. It was to bear your cross. So he says, I want you to take up your cross. Yeah, I want you to get the horizontal bar, son. I want you to strap it to your back, boy. Want you to walk up and down your streets, man. Want you to go in and out of your school, son. Want you to go down to your home. Want you to pray this in front of your wife or your husband. And I want you to literally let the embarrassment of the cross permeate the depth of your heart. I want you to take up your cross. Who would want to do that? What would motivate anybody to do that? Who would say, yes, oh yes, I want to do that. That sounds like fun. That's the kind of thing I'm into. It's repulsive. Yes, it's absolutely repulsive. That whole idea of bearing your cross and the crossbar and the ridicule and the peer pressure and making fun of, and who would want, I don't want to get involved in that. See, that's repulsive to me. It's repulsive to everybody except the one who's become like his master. See, the one who has the internal driving force that says, oh, I want to be like Christ. The one who says, oh, I've got one drive. I see with the eyes of God. Man, his mind has become my mind. His heart has become my heart. I'm beating with the throbbing heartbeat of God. I've got one thing on my mind. I want the expression of who Jesus is to live through me. Therefore, I want to be like Him. So, hey, carrying my cross, my horizontal bar of the cross, carrying that, it's not repulsive. It's a privilege. Give that thing to me, man. Why? Because I get to be like my Christ. I get to walk up and down the streets like He did. I get the ridicule of my world like He did. I get to embrace Him in His moment of death so that I can embrace Him in the moment of His resurrection. And because I'm with Him in His death, I'm with Him in His life. See, that's the whole message, man. So this is not repulsive to us. Not once I see it. Not once I see the cross in light of what He is and who He is and the nature of His being and the redemptive flow. I embrace it because I want to be like Him. Oh, that He would live His life through me like that. So this is not a condition to meet up to. Come on. This is not, well, you got to do it. Okay. When do I have to do it? Once or twice? Hey, do I have to do it annually? Oh, brother. No, take up your cross, the horizontal bar of the cross, and carry it. No, this is always do it, man. This is live on the cross. This is live in the dying. See, this is not some kind of doing condition. You do this, then you're in and you can forget about it. This is not some kind of an experience you have that we're talking about. This is the very life of God. This is joining Him in His death until you live the dying. And in the dying moment, in that moment, in the dying, you find life and you stay in that dying. See, you don't die, you don't come into death and then come out of death to live. No, you come into death, you stay in the death, because in that death there is the living. And it's only while you're in that death. See, it's only on the cross. It's only in bearing the horizontal bar of the cross. It's only in that ridicule. It's only in the scorn of that whole thing that life comes. So He's calling you not to an experience. He's calling you to the constant day in and day out living style, the style of the cross. And where does the style of the cross come from? You don't do the style of the cross and then get in. Oh, you get in. And then out of you comes the style of the cross and you can't help yourself. You absolutely cannot keep it from happening. That's His call. That's what He's talking to us about. So this is the imperative of the peculiar uplift. So this is an attitude, you understand. He's talking about attitude. So what has He given us so far? He said, if anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself. You see, that's the imperative of purposeful denial. It strikes a death blow at the very heart of life itself. Not superficial, not light, not denying yourself ice cream. This is the denial of every bit of reliance you have on yourself. This is coming to total death. The death of yourself, joining Him in His death, identifying with Christ on His cross until every bit of reliance on yourself, no more self-produced. Hey, He is now living His life through you, and all that you've longed for is now taking place as you begin to see His life reflected in you, for He is living His life through you. And this is denying yourself. So as it's lived out, you find that taking place because you've joined Him, in His death. You find that being lived out in His life through you, the style of the cross. So He's told us of the imperative of purposeful denial. Now He's told us of the imperative of the peculiar uplift, the literally taking on of the horizontal cross bar and literally carrying it, the scorn of that. And who would do that? Only the one who's lost his life, see? Only the one who's so identified with Christ. Only the one who's really in. This would spill out of that. So the process, the blood process that would spill to your world in redemption would literally take place out of this intimacy, this loss of your life. Join Him in His death that you might join Him in His life, the style of the cross. Now there's one more part of this attitude. The imperative of purposeful denial, the imperative of peculiar uplift, and then as you look at the last phrase in verse 24, he says, the imperative of progressive following. And he's talking about follow me. Now it's interesting that the first two imperatives are different than this last imperative. They're different in tense. The first two you will find are in the aorist tense. Now, we don't have anything like that in the English, so we normally translate it into the past. It has to do with punctiliar action. That is, it has to do with a focus on the event itself. It has to do with a completion of the act. It flows in that. But as you get into this last one, you find it's not in the aorist tense. The first two are in the aorist tense. So deny himself, deny, aorist tense. Take up his cross, take up, aorist tense. But this last one, follow me, guess what? Present tense with continual action. Wow. So, what's he saying? He's coloring all the rest of this. In other words, this deny yourself, this take up your cross, now must be drug into this idea of follow me, which takes these two and gives it a flow. So this is all about a present tense with continual action. This has a progressiveness to it. So this is not something, oh, I did it, got it done, hey, got that under my belt, glad I don't have to mess with that anymore. Oh, yeah, Saturday night when the crowd was the smallest, that's when I went to the altar, got that whole thing on, yeah, got my certificate, got my badge, hey, I've got it all done, don't need to mess with that anymore. No, this is, hey, I'm in the middle of this right now. This is, hey, I am literally living this out. This is, whoa, this is a present moment experience. And this is never anything but a present moment experience. This is not something I had in the past. This is not something I'm getting in the future. This is not heaven to come. This is not I had an experience 25 years ago. This is now in my life. There is this aggressive moving. There is the present progressive following of the person of Jesus Christ right now. So he's giving us this imperative of progressive following. Now, if this was a condition, you understand, then it would be a matter of slap my hand and deny myself and go to the altar and get the thing done and get it under my belt and get it over with so I don't have to mess with it anymore. But see, attitude is different. This is not a condition to get in. This is get in and you're going to have this attitude. And what's the attitude? Oh, a progressively following. The attitude of living in his death. The attitude of living in the denial. The attitude of constantly giving myself. The attitude, the style. Oh, the style. The style of the cross. The consistent flow of his life in and through me. And I'm in this progressive following. Now, analyze the statement carefully into verse 24. Follow me. Oh, who am I supposed to follow? Well, Jesus is doing the talking, so I'm supposed to follow him. Well, okay, follow him. Where is he going? That's what he's been telling them about. That's what this is all about. He's given his first prediction of his death and his resurrection in verse 21. That's what they're upset about. They don't want to follow him. Hey, he's going to a cross. He's blazing a path to the cross. Hey, he's going to death, man. He's going to spill his life out, son. That's what the whole thing is all about. And they're resisting every inch of the way, saying, we don't want to go. We don't want you to experience that, and for sure we don't want to experience that. So we're rebelling. We're rebuking you. We don't want this. But Jesus said, hey, you want to be in on me? Hey, you want to become a part of me? Hey, you want to be a disciple, my disciple? Then, hey, if you're going to be my disciple, these things are going to take place in your life. There's going to be a progressive following, a continual progressive attitude of losing your life. A progressive attitude of following, where day after day after day you're moving in this. This is present tense. This isn't turn off, turn on. This isn't do it, don't do it. This isn't, well, Sunday's my day for that. Well, that's Tuesday night calling night. This is constant flow, attitude, night, day, night, job, school, home. Good moments, bad moments. When you feel good, when you don't. When you got arthritis, when you don't. Hey, the whole thing is all about the flow, the progressive flow of the life of God in and through you. Now, look at what he's done. Deny yourself, take up your cross, and the present tense Progressive action, literally reaches back, grabs a hold of these, pulls them all together and says, here's the means of following him. Deny yourself, take up your cross, go where he is, be where he is. Hey, let him flow through you. Deny yourself. Now again, this is not a condition that you meet up to. See, this is not slap your hands, hey, I did my part, yeah, I got that done. This is not a condition, and I'll do these 3 things, and then, hey, I'll be in. This is, man, get in. Hey, get one with him. Oh, let his life begin to permeate you. Open yourself and say, hey, Jesus, do in me whatever you need to do. Go to the depth of my life. Permeate the depth of my system. Hey, change whatever you need to change. Do whatever you need to do. And in that moment, then out of you will begin to progressively, day by day, constantly, 24 hours a day, be the flow of denying yourself, taking up your cross, following me. It'll be an attitude that you have. You'll live in this flowing attitude. So, I'm asking you to analyze your spiritual life through the eyes of God. Do you live in that attitude, which is a result of being in him?